the number of administrators on campus has been expanding for decades now faster than the number of professors. And that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for universities that have way more professors than they had 20 years ago. You're paying for universities that have way more administrators. And those administrators, oftentimes if they're in residence life, for example, see as part of their job that they police speech on campus. So I think this is one of the reasons why I was so concerned about the idea of doing debt forgiveness without any attempt to debureaucratize universities. We can't keep having these institutions getting more and more bureaucratized, more and more expensive over the years. So I definitely think that a less bureaucratic university could be not just a cheaper university, but also one that's more free, that has more freedom of speech and more due process. As far as reforms that I ask people to make, I have my list of 6 things. That I tell people to go to their alma maters and ask for. 1, get rid of their speech codes. Fire can help with that. 2, stand up. Tell your university presidents to stand up for students and professors early and often when they get in trouble. 3, adopt something like the Chicago Statement, an academic freedom statement for the age of social media. 4, have an orientation that explains freedom of speech. It's actually a pretty sophisticated concept, particularly as it relates to academic freedom. 5, poll your students and professors to see what the environment on campus is like. And 6, think about alternatives. I think that the idea that we're sending people to, your sons and daughters to schools that, try to argue that $70,000 a year only covers the cost of half the cost of educating one student for 1 year, I think is ridiculous. I think we have to figure out better ways to signal to employers that this person is hardworking, is smart, and actually knows statistics, writing, et cetera.
You bring up some really interesting points. And the one that kind of stopped me, I took some notes, was this kind of explosion, ballooning of the bureaucracy, all the administrators, the expenses that come with that. And am I hearing maybe it's like a correlation with the crackdown on free speech on campus? I find that to me is really fascinating to see how those kind of go in tandem.
Yeah, no, everybody needs to understand that for most of my career, the people who are clamping down on free speech on campus were just the administrators. So from 2001 to 2014, it was overwhelmingly just coming from administrators. What's happening now is the students have gone from being great on free speech to being not so great. But still, every time you see a shout down on campus, every time you see, so there was this big incident at Yale. Yale, by the way, got our Lifetime Achievement Award for censorship this past year. And this was before there was 100 students in a class of 180 who showed up to shout down a presentation between an evangelical Christian litigator and a liberal litigator talking about where right and left can agree in Supreme Court advocacy. Students showed up, shouted it down. And every time something like that happens, universities need to do an investigation to find out not just why didn't administrators stop it, but in many cases, why did they encourage it? And that's very clearly happening at Yale at this point. We've had so many bad cases from Yale just in the past couple of years. The idea that no administrator has gotten fired for it is really damning for Yale.